Hello there once again, fellas. 2020 has obviously been a crazy year, so I'd just like to start off this video by saying congrats for surviving the worst year, hopefully, of our lifetimes. While the world crumbled, gaming offered a really welcome escape for me personally, so I'm really happy to say that this year has actually been a really good year for gaming. No seriously atrocious fiascos except for maybe Cyberpunk 2077 and Aeon Must Die, which, by the way, if you don't know about Aeon Must Die, it was this whole fiasco earlier in the beginning of the year that I don't think ever had like a public conclusion of any kind. Everyone just kind of forgot about it. Anyway, the games we got this year have been mostly really pleasant, but the best game to be released this year, and I may be a little bit biased, is Deep Rock Galactic. Who would have guessed? By the way, I asked you guys what you most want implemented in Deep Rock Galactic in 2021. So, stick around till later in the video for more on that. 2020 seemed to have acted as a mostly transitional year for the game into a 1.0 release, starting with some expansion of content and quality of life improvements in the beginning of the year, and slowly but surely building up all of its mechanics into a product that could be presented as a completed, ready-to-be-played as intended video game. Ghost Ship polished up their meta-infested perk system, polished weapon balance to as close to perfection as they could, manifested several community requests, and at the end of the year, a couple months after release, they still even had enough room to drop a major content overhaul in the form of the Roughnecks at Work update. DRG had as perfect an early access success story as I could conceive. With the events of 2020 going on, I for one definitely appreciated being able to trust a talented studio to deliver a consistently soulful and thoughtful experience, uncompromised by greed and misleading practices as we so often see in gaming. Now, I might sound like a broken record at this point because I've said this multiple times, but I really do believe that it is the gaming community's responsibility to give credit where credit is due, and not just hyper-focus on the bad. When the community allocates all of their focus on the bad things happening in the gaming industry, after the dust settles, it buries the gems, and we risk neglecting the games that are actually worth our time, which, in turn, sends a bad message to studios, developers, and corporations. This message we send by clicking on negative articles and videos and just angry Twitter threads, more so than we do for positive content, is bad on multiple different fronts. For example, it gives the impression that quality products don't receive much publicity, and in turn, don't receive much sales. It also gives the appearance that gamers are nothing more than a neurotic, angry bunch, which fuels the disrespect major corporations have already clinged pretty hard to. This is evident in EA's constant push to get our children hooked onto gambling, as a direct result of their disregard for the mental health of the gaming youth. It's good to show appreciation to the games you believe deserve it, and even just that simple expression of gratitude in the moment, in whatever form it may manifest, may turn out to be an invaluable long-term strategy to maximize our chances at continuing this trend of good games by developers that care. Some studios have an iron will, so to speak, and can survive a ruthless media onslaught through their passion for the project alone. Hello Games is the perfect example of this, and has become a symbol recognized by all of the gaming world. When someone looks at No Man's Sky, they see a project that very clearly died on arrival. It crashed and burned with a shower of hate and death threats from the community. But through sheer passion of the project, Sean Murray and the crew kept on adding more massive features to the game they had still harbored hope for. In September of 2020, No Man's Sky received an update called Origins, which was a massive planetary overhaul, adding so much more content that I couldn't even begin to describe just how astronomical the change actually was to the overall feel of the game. The Origins update was lauded by all gamers across the board, some even saying that No Man's Sky now feels like what Sean Murray had promised us all those years ago. Who knows what would have happened if the studio had crumbled under the initial stress of the overwhelmingly negative reception at launch back in 2016. It may very well have meant one less good game in 2020. Sadly, we can't just trust that all studios will be exactly like Hello Games. It certainly wasn't the death threats that compelled them to make their game better. It was the passion of the project and the faith in the gaming community that they might be forgiven, even after all that had happened. A reminder that they forgave us before we forgave them. In other words, they were the exception. It's important not to neglect the reciprocal relationship between developer and gamer. Through the depersonalization filter that is the internet, it's easy to say something you wouldn't under normal circumstances. I do it all the time, you've probably done it, we've all fallen into this trap more than we'd like to admit. In fact, one of the most successful industries on the planet right now profits from this exact phenomenon. Algorithms on social media are deliberately designed to subject you to that which you are most likely to interact with. And put plainly, most of us are far more likely to interact more with things that upset us than things that please us. This is especially true as it pertains to social media, where it seems people actually get a dopamine hit from aligning themselves with others against a perceived bad thing. This natural human behavior may help to explain why we're more likely to remember just how terrible Fallout 76 was all the way back in 2018, instead of how genuinely great games like Doom Eternal and Half-Life Alyx were just as recently as this year. Is it Alyx or Alex? Man, it's one of my favorite VR games. I don't even remember how to say her name. Anyway, I'm not sure about you guys, but my personal New Year's resolution is just to keep an eye on when I'm tempted to engage with and feed in too much with this negative feedback loop propagated by the social medias, lest the algorithm cheats me out of introducing me to a good game that I might love in favor of introducing me to a game that just gets propped up because everyone rallies against it and it gets a lot of interactivity because everybody hates it and all that. Maybe by changing the way I interact with the algorithm, I might change my overall mood for the better as well. So it just seems like a net positive on all fronts. But enough about myself. I asked you guys what features you most want implemented in Deep Rock Galactic in 2021. The most popular suggestion as of making this video was, without a doubt, the legendary firing range. For those of you who don't know, the firing range was a blocked off area of the space rig that seemed to indicate plans to construct said firing range, where you might be able to test your weapons and overclocks without having to start a whole new mission that might wind up proving to be a slog. Because if you're just messing with builds and trying to find out what feels right for you, you might not want to commit to a full-length mission, and you might actually be doing your teammates a disservice. So the fact that this isn't in the game, it kind of surprises me. Right now, without the firing range, trying new builds and feeling out what works for you is made a more tedious process, because odds are you're going to wind up dedicating your time to completing that whole mission, especially if you're playing with others. Or, you also run the risk of actually losing that mission because your build doesn't actually fit your playstyle. I've been waiting on news about the firing range because it just seems like such a given for a game like this, but as far as I'm aware, I'm not so sure a firing range is even being planned anymore, which is really disappointing because it would be such a useful tool and it would alleviate a very clear issue amongst DRG employees. Preferably being able to see little damage numbers on the dummy targets you attack would be absolute perfection. Another popular suggestion that I'd actually played around with a bit in my head before as well is mods for Molly. The mule is the one thing you can be sure will never change in a mission. Yeah, a couple missions don't use the mule at all, but so many other missions do, and with how frequently players are interacting with the mule, I and many others would argue that this aspect of the game has so much untapped potential. Even some small alteration to the mule between missions or hosts would do wonders in adding player expression or just mission variability. Whether the mods be cosmetic or utility oriented, or both, this would just be a welcome addition, especially to players like myself who appreciate the simple pleasure of mission variability based on team decisions. Things like the loadouts your teammates are using and stuff like that. Stuff that spices up the missions and makes matchmaking more interesting. For instance, if the host were to customize their mule's appearance while the group got to vote on a mission's mule modifier, This would spice up the co-op experience and encourage players to stick around more with their squad between missions. I remember back in my age-old review of Deep Rock Galactic, my primary critique was the assignment system. The assignment system would actively incentivize players to quit, to join another team who was working on their assignment, and then leave the instant that mission was over. This decreases the likelihood of establishing friendships and strips a good deal of the fun away from deciding which mission you'd like to do next, because odds are your assignment has already made that choice for you. Over these many months, this issue has only gotten worse, with assignments being so numerous that even well after I've completed them all, I'm still irritated when I'm forced to do missions I don't want to do to continue leveling up, because you have to do an assignment every time you want to promote. So the assignment system is something you just have to deal with throughout the entirety of playing Deep Rock. While this mule change would not be enough to solve this problem in totality, it would make the assignment system much more tolerable, in that it will incentivize players to maybe disregard their current assignment and contribute to the modifications of the mule for the next mission. The system could be something like each player gets to add their own component to the mule from their inventory, or something like that. It doesn't have to be a big deal. And you can maybe even extend this to the drill dozer and mineheads. In particular, this could be an opportunity to add some more character to the game and make it not even just more fun to play, but more fun to watch for viewers who like, watching streamers. Having a goofy mod, like the mule generating a gag beer every now and again, would add a new layer of depth, both just for laughs and maybe even for practical utility. Maybe mounting some kind of light onto the mule would be a nice option, or maybe just even a device mounted on the mule that provides a wider reveal area for the terrain scanner. These are just some small ideas that come to mind for me, but there's so much potential here, and I'm curious as to what you guys might think would make for a good little mule mod. Now, I'm not trying to get your hopes up because, it's a long shot that the developers will actually, implement this, although it would be awesome, but it's just fun to, engage with the imagination a little bit. Anyway, some other common requests are relatively simple ones that give people more build choices, like new weapons, mods, and overclocks for traversal items, flares, and pickaxes. What's strange is you used to be able to upgrade your flares, but it was more linear than the upgrade systems now. Now the flare on the build menu just kind of takes up space. I've seen suggestions in the past where people are like, let me select my flare to be able to stick to surfaces and, stuff like that. And I think those are cool ideas. There's some more potential there as well. And even a mod for your pickaxe that would, maybe it wouldn't deal as much damage, but you could smack a bug with it and not get that annoying movement hindrance. Just so you could smack swarmers more reliably. Maybe it won't be as effective against grunts, but you could smack swarmers without compromising your movement speed. I think that would be really cool, and it would open up some choices there, some more things to think about. One request that I really liked was an endless kind of mode. In any game that has an endless mode or a horde mode, I always enjoy it, and the DRG formula may fit an endless mode perfectly. Although, again, that's not likely because they did just add 2 new modes to the game. I remember a long time ago, I think actually this was sometime this year, they may have abandoned the idea, but I remember it used to be that they were planning on creating some kind of free mode. I don't exactly know what that mode would have entailed, but it sounds interesting. It sounds very interesting to me. You guys sent way more suggestions than I had expected, and I sadly cannot put them all in the video, cause, it's gone on pretty long as it is, but I'd like to make more of this kind of stuff in the future, so if you want to engage in future discussions, be sure to engage with the channel by liking the video and maybe leaving a comment, and then, of course, subscribe to the channel so that you can see these community posts show up in your feed. I think it would be cool to do something like this every video. 2020 was an incredible year for Deep Rock Galactic and gaming in general, so cheers to what may come in 2021. Hopefully we can keep this positive momentum going, and actually I think we're starting this year pretty strong because we should be getting a couple unique biomes pretty soon, so definitely expect a video on that once it comes out. And finally, just before I go, just a quick update on the upcoming build bite. It's taking me a little while longer than I had anticipated, but still, I'm excited to release it and keep the series going. It's just having to juggle between school and sorting through all the hours and hours of footage I have, and making the graphics and all that stuff. It kind of stacks up, but it is in the works. By the way, it is a scout build. So, thank you so very much for watching this video all the way through, and see you guys again very, very soon. Good luck in those caves, and peace out.